Jy dink jy's cooler as ek.
Want jy rook Yves Saint Laurent sigarette.
Jy dink jy's cooler as ek.
Want jy het 'n tattoo van 'n slang op jou tette.
Jy dink jy's cooler as ek.
Want jy het 'n plakkaat van Led Zeppelin bo jou bek.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very big honor for me to have been invited to partake of these proceedings. And I just want to thank the organizers. Jaco asked me specifically when he approached me to speak on Jack Parow. And I've decided to prepare this afternoon's paper not so much for its sensational value, but because I think that Jack Parrow's music offers a specific potential for polemic thought and polemic reflection. Well, welcome to paradise. Some scholars regard the art of rap as the new poetics of postmodern art, a postmodern form that is fiercely intertextual, open-ended and hybrid. Others are more pessimistic in viewing rap as a fundamentally post-apocalyptic form which, in a thoroughly commercialized manner, only scratches the decaying surface of what they see as representing demoralized post-industrial values. However, there is common agreement that rap is deserving of serious academic scholarship and that it signally transforms cultural gestures and relocates inflections of meaning in its ever more varied globalized contexts of operation. As part of the recent trend of including non-canonical repertoires in musicological studies, my paper focuses on the song Cooler as Ekke by Afrikaans rapper Jack Parow. I intend to read the song, both the lyrics and the music, from the construction of a particular socio-cultural context in which intrinsic and extrinsic textual meanings are seen as being contextually linked. This point of departure draws on the rap theory of Adam Crims, who argues that rap is not only a constantly involving syncretic or hybrid form, but that through identifiable and relatively stable genre transmutations, it is representative of real social contexts. In this regard, Crims identifies 4 genres which he believes create particular social identities. These are party rap, Mac rap, jazz bohemian rap, and reality rap. Let us at this point consider the artistic persona of Jack Parow, alias Zander Tyler, the Afrikaans rapper with the characteristically long cap, neon-colored beachwear, and zeth lyrics. Enjoying worldwide fame on digital media such as YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, Parow has long since established himself as an Afrikaans cult figure. His crude rap lyrics, peppered with Afrikaans swear words, forms as much part of his artistic identity as his peach-colored Ford Sierra with sheepskin seat covers and fake grass on the dashboard. It is interesting that leading Afrikaans intellectuals such as Frikkie Lombard and Ernst Coetzee should view Zef culture as the essential South African style of the day and as the creation of a new form of alternative Afrikaans culture. This viewpoint may perhaps differ from Parrow's own viewpoint, stating that he is simply the pirate of the caravan park. Let us return again to Crims's rap theorization, forming the music theoretical underpinning of my analysis. As one of the most important publications to have emerged on the art of rap, Crims's Rap Music and the Poetics of Identity, published in 2000, primarily focuses on the role of rap as a symbolic representation of ethnic and geographic identities. This point of departure Crims bases in a socio-cultural system of referencing where rap styles and genres become a discursive platform for the mediation and understanding of social behavior. Crims identifies 4 main rap genres, namely party rap, Mac rap, jazz bohemian rap, and reality rap. These genres he explains as follows. Party rap is representative of the first examples of rap music that were simply meant for young people to have a good time and for creating a groove or a mood. Historically, it may be traced back to the African tradition of toasting and boasting and storytelling as part of the celebration of life, an aspect which also features in Crimson's other rap genres. In terms of its musical character, party rap is dance music with a strong rhythmic prominence, which is often bass-driven with a fast tempo. Topics are light and without any political implications, focusing mostly on pleasure, humor, love, and romance. Crimson's second genre, mac rap or pimp rap, can also be traced to the historical phenomenon of African toasting and boasting, but here, topics of male sexual prowess and power over women often also include boasting with material wealth. Generally, mac rap uses a very limited scope of musical materials, however often incorporating R&B styles as well as live instrumentation. The layering of sound is not nearly as dense as in other rap genres. Often the refrain is sung by a female voice and in video versions, seductive female images. Jazz Bohemian rap, Crimson's third genre, represents a kind of connoisseur's culture, which is sometimes also called college boy rap. As the name implies, this genre incorporates jazz styles such as cool jazz, soul jazz, and hard bop. Musically, this genre is always characterized by a kind of artiness. The lyrics are sophisticated, implying socio-cultural or socio-critical reflection. Crimson's fourth genre, reality rap, is simultaneously the culturally most powerful of his genres and also the most commercial. Lyrics reflect mostly on the realities of ghetto life, often referencing media debates of the day. Musical styles may vary considerably, but are always characterized by an aggressiveness suggestive of ghetto-centricity and male power, complemented by a dense layering of sound and samplings of clashing timbres. A preliminary analysis of Cooler as Ekke reveals that the song parodies Crimson's genre of mac rap, where the rapper addresses a fictional opponent and boasts about his own material success and sexual prowess. However, Parow does not employ the overfamiliar imagery of African-American mac rap, but uses everyday symbols of Zef Afrikaner life to construct a very particular representation of Afrikanerskap. Of importance for my analysis of the song is that this representation of the contemporary Afrikaner in no way sublimates Afrikanerskap, but on the contrary celebrates Zef identity as an alternative kind of Afrikanerhood. It is also important to note that while being suggestive of a class war, the lyrics do not suggest that Parow's opponent in the song represents a dominant ethnic group. And yet the song does suggest a form of cultural resistance. Parow celebrates his common sexy correct status. He is the kif life of the party. The satirical mac rap element of the song is vested in the fact that well-known everyday iconic symbols of lower class Afrikaansness are constantly juxtaposed with stereotyped status symbols of the nouveau riche, so that Parow's raw beats, witblits, spirits, and his slick, quiet vampire style opposes the materialist symbols of Yves Saint Laurent, cigarettes, iced tea, Peroni, Isimiake, etc. It is typical of mac rap that the lyrics contain ample reference to well-known mass cultural images and personae such as the Igoli characters Tim Foster and Chris Edwards, or that opponents in the music industry are mocked, as is evident in the reference to Jeremy de Tolly, who is the head singer of the Cape Town-based indie rock group Dirty Skirts. A study of Afrikaner identity representations in recent examples of Afrikaans popular music finds that such representations often do sublimate the Afrikaner's past. We can think, for instance, of the iconic De La Rey, or that they revel in a newfound rainbow identity, for instance, in the music of DJ Ossewa. Obviously, these types of projections are not present in Parow's Cooler as Ekke. As noted earlier, this song may be categorized under Crimson's genre of mac rap. Accordingly, there is a limited application of musical materials and live instruments such as an acoustic guitar and drum set are used. Typically, the refrain is sung by a seductive female artist. These stripped-down musical materials form an ideal backdrop for Paro's primitive construction of Afrikaner identity that clings to Zef symbols such as friends in Benoni, Pep Stores pants and Vernon Koekemoer jokes. In fact, this Mac rap parody constructs a very particular representation of Afrikanerhood, which is not necessarily benevolent in terms of its ethnic identity. For it may be argued that Paro's banal street wisdom, which is constantly operative on the surface of the song, may capture the listener in ideologically convenient modes of experience that conceal more complex aspects of the song's content. Therefore, as an example of banality, Cooler as Ekke may be instrumental in fetishizing and libidinizing, to borrow Terry Eagleton's terms, present South African realities, and that it may apparently do this by its very obliteration of the need for analysis. The very crudeness of Paro's banality thus presupposes an almost uncritical acceptance of it, not of the crudeness as such, but of the fact that in the context of celebration, such crudeness becomes unremarkable. While the banality of the song may therefore be dismissed on grounds of being morally offensive or be welcomed as a deviation of stuffy Afrikaner representations, at a deeper level of analysis, it may obliterate the need for analysis whilst bolstering a kind of liberal melancholy that shuns reflection. From these perspectives, an ideology-critical interpretation of the song's reception may serve to critically address ideological layers of signification as operative in Cooler as Ekke. In this regard, the theories of British ideology theorist John Thompson enable the analysis of what he calls ideological modes of operation, which include the strategies of legitimation, dissimulation, unification, fragmentation, and reification, which strategically function within text to symbolically construct ideology. In Cooler as Ekke, the strategies of legitimation, which here is the construction of a certain narrative of Afrikanerhood, then unification, which here is the symbolic belonging to this narrative, and fragmentation, the expurgation of the other, may be identified. It is a well-known fact that Jack Paro's music, despite his enormous following, is repulsive for many Afrikaners. During 2010, Gavin Prince wrote in Rapport that Paro had to withdraw from the Huisgenoot Skouspel because Unita du Plessis refused to sing the Our Father on a stage shared with what she described as a foul mouth. Infuriated readers responded by their dozens, literally condemning Paro to hell. In a column titled A Different Kind of Afrikaner, Johan Swartz in 2010, however, approaches Jack Paro from a more intellectualized perspective, arguing that Paro's music represents an important shifting of identity within Afrikanerdom. He points out that Paro uses banality to deconstruct the kind of Afrikaner who is still rummaging the volkscoffin for cultural goods in the hope of salvaging something of worth. Swartz also believes that Paro's music represents the raw poverty that has existed among Afrikaners in the past and which is now again prevalent among some sectors of the Afrikaner nation. Swartz thus suggests that Paro's following on the one hand is vested in a glorification of less fortunate aspects of the Afrikaners past and present, and on the other hand in his thorough disrespect for obsolete, pretentious representations of Afrikanerhood. From the perspective of Paro's reception, while followers argue that his music has made Afrikaans hip and sexy among the young and old, one Rapport correspondent condemns him as a banal fanatic pig who but falls short of Al-Qaeda membership. It thus becomes evident that Jack Paro's Cooler as Ekke, as a paradigmatic example of his work, projects a decidedly one-sided representation of Afrikaner identity. This point of interpretative departure underlines that within the current socio-political context of our country, some Afrikaans listeners may regard Cooler as Ek either as a statement of the familiar and the own, or may experience it as a critique of outdated, pretentious representations of Afrikanerhood. The song rouses strong resistance in other Afrikaans listeners and thus draws crude, divisive lines. It is on this level that Cooler as Ek harbors undertones of a less benevolent representation of Afrikaner identity. While the song does point to a new kind of politics of difference, where the rapper consciously invokes not only his Afrikaner heritage, but also embraces global influences, ultimately, an assumed shared Afrikaner heritage in this song clashes crudely with the one-sided representation of Afrikanerhood. However, it should be pointed out that on this level as well, ironically, Cooler as Ek also has the potential to resist one-sided interpretations. As a construction of banal identity, the song may thus, on the one hand, absolutize a certain understanding of Afrikaner identity, while on the other, it may invoke cultural criticism. This may be a result of the fact that, as Adam Crims would argue, the association of rap music with marginalized and aggrieved groups often guarantees that the carving out of discursive presence takes center stage in serious discussions of the form. In addition, it is arguable that rap culture, with its focus on realness and claims of cultural ownership, foregrounds identity with an explicitness unprecedented even in the ethnically and gender-loaded world of popular music. I thank you very much.